Well, let's continue this conversation, and we're joined by Minister of Higher Education, Dr. Blade Nzimande, who joins us via the virtual platform. Minister, good morning to you, and thank you very much for affording us your time. You have heard the Chancellor of the university there, that's Advocate Dumisa Ntsebeza, who says the words of the Vice-Chancellor are that the President's office must be directly involved here. What's your assessment of that statement, first up?
Well, Claudia, thank you very much. Compliments to you and your viewers and listeners, and thanks for this opportunity. Let me just start by expressing my condolences to the family of the late Mr. Vesele, who lost his life on Friday. And then one appreciates that sometimes we do not take such workers seriously, yet they often put their lives at stake to save people who actually need to be guarded. Secondly, Koli, I would have really liked to focus on what we are doing about Fort Hare. I do not have a problem if the Vice-Chancellor and the Chancellor decide to reach out to the President. But on our side, there is a lot that we've been doing about the problems that are facing Fort Hare. And I'm going there on Wednesday to meet with the various stakeholders at Fort Hare. I'm going to be meeting with the council, the Vice-Chancellor and his management team, the trade unions on campus, as well as the students, just to make an assessment of their views and assessment of what the challenges are and what more needs to be done. Secondly, in terms of what I've done, Tony, on Saturday I spoke to the Minister of Police, Minister Cele, just emphasizing the fact that I would really request that this matter of Fort Hare be taken as a priority investigation. Largely and mainly because I'm concerned that if we don't move, this might negatively affect the start of the academic year, thus affecting thousands and thousands of students from largely poor families. I've also spoken to the Chair of Council yesterday, where I actually requested him to please convene a meeting of Council on Wednesday so that I can be able to engage with all the stakeholders. I also want to say, Cody, that the insinuation that is made that I've been doing nothing about Fort Hare is completely untrue. Because the university has been under administration until just after a year ago. It was put under administration in order to address the many challenges that have been facing that institution. In fact, when Professor Buhlungu arrived there, we were already dealing with that situation. And over and above that, we, at the recommendation of the then administrator, Professor Nonga, we had requested to the President to appoint the SIU to go and dig deeper into the challenges that are actually facing that institution. And my department has been engaging with the university on an ongoing basis.
Yeah.
And I have also taken the opportunity to brief the President this morning about what is happening and what I am doing, and express his support that I actually continue to actually deal with this. My own view, Coach, is simply this, that what is happening at Fort Hare is not an exception. My sector is beginning really to be put under difficulties by what one may call mafias that are wanting to capture the post-school education and training institutions, including universities and TVET colleges. As I'm talking to you now, you will remember, Cody, some 4 or 5 years ago, a dean professor at the University of Zululand was assassinated because he was fighting the scourge of selling off certificates then at the University of Zululand. Some 2 or 3 years ago, I had to go to Donnybrook to pay my respects to a family of an official from the Coastal Tibet College in KZN who was in the supply chain management and who was killed for reasons that are clearly linked to tenders and actually trying to capture institutions. Right now, as I'm talking to you, a few other vice-chancellors of universities have got protectors and bodyguards. And they, as well as principals of TVET colleges. So whilst one is dealing with the Fort Hare situation, I'm also dealing with a larger situation. A few years ago, I requested University of Zululand on my behalf to undertake an investigation on the security situation in our universities and what are the causes of some of these problems that are actually taking place.
Yeah.
I am now going to be engaging the Minister of Police together with the head of the Hawks to assist us now generally on the side of the institutions as a whole and systemic. So I've been preoccupied by this, and I am continuing to work, as I am also going to Fort Hare, as I'm saying to you, on Wednesday. But this is a larger problem, Toli. It's important that I say this. The larger problem of corruption that we are dealing with as a country, and also the point that the president made yesterday, by the way, which is linked to this, the growing lawlessness in our country, that people seem to think they can just do as they wish in whatever situation they are in.
Let me use your words then, Minister Nzimande.
Yes.
When you say you have involved the Minister of Police, and then
yes,
immediately after that statement you are saying you are now also going to be involving the Hawks. Is this the time? Is this now the time that this has become clear in your mind that the Hawks, which is the elite policing crime fighting unit in South Africa, ought to be involved?
Absolutely. And the involvement must be at two levels. The first one is to follow up on cases where things have actually happened, like the killings at Fort Hare, and the murders, the other murders that are actually taking place, as well as the threats. But also then to work with the Hawks and say, can we design a strategy? Also, by the way, working with my colleagues in the security cluster in cabinet to say, how do we really try and get deeper into the problems that are there? But that's one side of the challenge story, because usually the police, the Hawks get involved after the fact. We must work towards preventing these things. And that is why the SIU is investigating, but also that is why I'm emphasizing the issue of stakeholder relations and stakeholder management in our institutions. Our head of our institutions must not act as tin pot dictators. I always emphasize that to all of them. Mm-hmm. They must work with all the stakeholders so that we create an environment that whether it's workers or students or whoever in those institutions are able to come forward to us or to the law enforcement agencies. And we identify the threats before bad things happen. It's very bad that the Vice-Chancellor, was basically being assassinated on Friday. Mm. And it's very bad that some other people have already been killed in many of our institutions. So my approach, therefore, is both institution-specific as well as generally dealing with this cancer of corruption and capture of post-school education and training institutions, that we must just make sure that we deal with this thing from all angles if we are to make sure that these institutions do what they are supposed to do. And their task is one and only one, is to train our young people and adults in some other instances to acquire knowledge and skills in order to be able to grow and develop our economy, and for them to be able to also help their own families. That should be the task of these institutions.
Minister, I've listened with a very keen ear to your responses. And let me sum it up this way, in a form of a question. So you are only considering now involving the Hawks. You've mentioned KZN, the assassination that took place there. In Fort Hare, this is the second assassination because, yes, this was a direct attempt on the Vice-Chancellor, but instead it is the protector. That does not mean that his life means any less. So this is the second assassination in Fort Hare after the fleet manager, Beat Root, was killed in May last year. And I'm summing this up for you, Minister, in order to go back to the words of the Chancellor Advocate Ntsebeza, who says, now the minister in the presidency and the president's office must get involved. That's a vote of no confidence in how you have dealt with this issue. How do you respond to that?
No, Paul, you are misunderstanding me. In every instance of corruption or murder, I have involved the police. In all of them. That's what I've been doing, if you like, for the past 15 years. In my role as minister, that's what I've been doing. What I was saying to you, which you do not understand, is that we are now wanting to have a discussion with the Hawks to look systemically, to look at the system as the whole, rather than just dealing with this on a case-by-case basis. I think it is unfortunate, Tony, as I have said in other platforms as well, that if the VC sees it fit to go to the president, or the chancellor thinks that it must be the president, it is unfortunate if that then is seen as if I'm not doing nothing. That is not the case at all. After all, Tony, I've spoken to the president this morning. I can tell you the president is going to refer the matter back to me, because I am the minister responsible. So it is always helpful that even when people escalate matters to the president, they are also able to take us along as the department and as ministers, because we are the people who deal with this matter on a day-to-day basis. And also, it's unfortunate, Cody, I've raised this with the Vice-Chancellor, I've raised this with the Chair, I've raised it with all the stakeholders, that when such things happen, we must not grandstand. We must work collaboratively to be able to deal with these situations. I am committed to continue working with Fort Hare, which are not only starting now, and all the matters that have been affecting Fort Hare have been reported to the police, matters of a criminal nature or of threats. What I am wanting to do now, because to me it's clear this is a systemic thing. It's not just an isolated thing. It's not Fort Hare only also.
Yeah. All right.
That we then need to have a much more deeper and systematic approach. As a matter of fact, I have invited the minister in the presidency, to say, come with me to Fort Hare on Wednesday, so that also you yourself can actually see directly what is actually going on. Not because I don't have confidence in what I'm dealing with, but so that we work collaboratively as government to actually deal with these challenges. So if this thing then unfortunately is being turned as if it's a vote of no confidence in me, I think actually that's being opportunistic use of this thing, which doesn't help, but just divert us from the problems that we are facing.
Minister Nzimande, I wonder if you have time on your side, because I'd like to get into deeper detail with you about who this mafia is that wants to capture the tertiary institutions. These are your words. So can we do that after this short break? And can I just also warn you that we are going to be joined by the deputy editor of the Daily Dispatch, because they've also been following the issues around Fort Hare. Do you mind if she joins the conversation?
No, I don't mind at all, Tony, although professionally it's very helpful that I'm told beforehand, but that's fine, you can go ahead.
No problem, Minister. No, this is not meant to be a debate. We just want to understand the issues as they have been covering them. So thank you very much. We'll continue the conversation with the Minister shortly after this. You're watching Newsfeed AM. Well, if you're just joining us, you would have seen the conversation between ourselves and the Minister of Higher Education, Dr. Blade Nzimande. He is still with us, but we're also joined now by the Deputy News Editor of the Daily Dispatch. That's the publication down in the Eastern Cape. Yanga Soji is the Deputy News Editor there. It's all got to do with this situation that is unfolding at Fort Hare University. Yanga, thank you very much for joining this conversation. Quickly, from your end, when you heard the comments by the Vice-Chancellor, who is asking for the President's direct intervention, what came to your mind? You guys have been tracking this story. Why do you think that the Vice-Chancellor would go straight to the top and not include the Minister of Higher Education?
Morning, Tony. Morning to your viewers. Thank you for having me this morning. Yes, as the dispatch, we have been following the sequence of events that have been happening there over the past year, which is 2022. And this includes when there was a shooting incident at the Vice-Chancellor's house, Vice-Chancellor Buhlungu. A man was captured on CCTV firing shots at his house. There was another incident also where one of the senior staff members, shots were fired at her house, also in East London. And then, as you mentioned earlier, the shooting of the fleet manager. So in all of those incidents, there was no real intervention. I believe all of those cases are still pending. So when we saw the comments of the VC going straight to the president, it wasn't much of a surprise to us. In our conversation that we had in today's paper, Vice-Chancellor actually indicates that he's not planning to quit. He says that it's not something that's even on his mind, as much as his bodyguard, his protector, Mr. Nzimande, of 5 years, was gunned down on Friday night. But he's saying that quitting is not an option. He's still adamant that he's going to continue fighting corruption. This follows last year in August, President Cyril Ramaphosa actually instructed the SIU to investigate a number of incidents of corruption at University of Fort Hare. So with now the VC going straight to President Ramaphosa, it's not much of a surprise because it has been a number of incidents and it doesn't seem like there was an intervention to assist Fort Hare all the time. Yeah.
And what seems to be at the heart of the issue here?
Corruption, Tony. There is corruption. The VC has been vocal about this. And we believe that the SIU also getting involved is a sign that there's a lot going wrong as the institution. For that, there was a death reported and there was no progress made. I mean, this gentleman, Mr. Rhodes, he was shot in broad daylight here in East London in Konubian, the middle of traffic. I think it was a weekday, 4 p.m. But nothing ever came of that investigation. Not entirely sure what level of corruption it is, but the story that we did last year in August indicated that the SIU was investigating 4 tenders, including contracts of cleaning, guarding services, student accommodation, appointment of a service provider. And in our interview with the VC today, it indicates actually that the corruption is internal and external. He goes further to hint that there's business people involved, there's politicians, there's a private sector. So he's been very vocal about what he's trying to do at Fort Hare, which at this point has seemingly put his life at risk.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Minister Nzimande, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here, Tony.
Thank you very much, Minister, for staying on. You've heard Yanga, and there was this reference to the SIU investigation. Have you gotten any update as to what that has possibly uncovered? Because, as you said earlier, corruption is at the heart of the issue here, but also you've put some flavor to it to suggest that there is actually a mafia that wants to take over the running of these institutions.
Colin, I think perhaps it's still too early to ask what the SIU is doing and what it is finding out. Which leads me to a suggestion I would really and honestly, with due respect, I would like to make to media when dealing with such stories, so that we don't deal with these things in a fragmented way. It's important that adequate background information is collected by our news outlets. For example, in this case, I'm not so sure, Cody, whether you have read even a summary of the report of the administrator at Fort Hare, as well as my public responses to that administration on what the problems and the challenges are and what needs to be done. Because a lot of these things that are covered now as if they are new, they are there in the administrator's report, that what is at the heart of this is actually corruption and elements who are trying to capture the institution. Also, I would have expected that both yourself and Yanga, you would have spoken to the police to find out that in respect to Mr. Wood and all that, what progress is there? Because I have no doubt that these matters are being investigated. The fact that there may not be anyone who has been arrested now does not mean that investigations are not continuing. There are many cases where we have not had arrests, where we would want to have arrests, but the police are continuing to do their work. It would also have been important for the purposes of the listeners and the viewers to say, what did the police say? I can't answer on the basis of the police. The police will come and tell me when they see fit as to actually what is going on. I have also then told you as well on the latest actions that I'm taking and the engagements that I'm doing. And I also hope that you will be able to join us on Wednesday when we interact with the stakeholders at Fort Hare. Now, I'm saying this because otherwise we deal with matters as if they are new, when actually they are not new. It's all new, some of which we are dealing with here about the problems at Fort Hare. So then, insofar as who is involved, the mafias, I'm talking here generally now about my experience in this sector, that usually you get a group of people who target being members of council, or if not, they actually target tenders at institutions, whether it's about student accommodation, whether it's about procurement of services and so on. In some instances, people have been arrested and charged. With respect to the dean at the University of Zululand, who was killed, people are serving in jail now. It's simple. Who are those? What's their background? Where do they come from? And there were people from inside the university who were actually being named. But if you look at the pattern, coach, it doesn't even require extensive research. You can see that the problem of corruption everywhere in public institutions and in the public sector, and also as exposed by the Zondo Commission, involved networks of people. I don't have names on people that who have not been arrested, but the pattern to me is very clear, like at Fort Hare. It's very clear that the people who want to kill the Vice-Chancellor have got to do with the issue of tenders and corruption and attempts to capture the institution.
Can I ask this final question of you then, Minister?
Yes.
We are aware that the Vice-Chancellor Buhlungu has had his term renewed at this university. Is that something that you want to support moving forward? Because the suggestions, or at least the reporting, suggests that he is actually dealing decisively with corruption. Is that something that you're willing to support?
Cody, let me just say this first. I don't appoint or renew Vice-Chancellor's positions. That's done by councils. And I do have confidence in council's decisions. If in terms of their assessment, they think this or that Vice-Chancellor or this or that college principal actually should continue, I will respect that irrespective of who the individuals. I don't want to be then, you draw me into the specifics of Fort Hare. Where councils that I've got confidence in decide on that in terms of their own evaluation, I will support that. I don't have any say insofar as those things are concerned, and hope that the decision they take is the correct one in having a confidence in a particular individual. Where I think that the councils are going wrong, like it was done at Fort Hare before, I will act, including dissolving the council and putting the university under administration where required. So if that's the decision of the council of Fort Hare, I will support that decision. And insofar as I'm concerned, I am more than willing to work with the University of Fort Hare to get to the bottom of the challenges and the problems that we have. Working with our Vice-Chancellor, I had a lengthy telephone conversation with him again this morning and told him that he has my full support. And if he suspects that there are people who are actually after his blood, he must go and report to the police. He assured me that he has actually reported all of that to the police. So on my side, I am prepared to do my bit to contribute to a stable Fort Hare, as I have always done.
And he didn't explain to you why he saw it fit to go straight to the president's office. Did you have a conversation about that?
No, I can't answer for him on that. He will have to answer for himself. All I said is that it is normally good that even if someone goes to the president, we get taken into confidence that I am going to be raising such and such a matter with the president. That was not done in this case, which I think in terms of working together is not a very good thing, but I am not complaining about that. It's up to the Vice-Chancellor. Also, I understand, God, the Vice-Chancellor is under pressure.
Right.
It's no child's play, to see that you are actually being assassinated or people are looking after you to kill you. I can talk from direct experience myself that thing is very unsettling. So if the VC says at the heat of the moment he thinks that this matter needs to be referred to the president, I have no problem with that whatsoever. Okay. I will play my own role as minister who is responsible for Fort Hare, amongst other institutions, and that is why I'm going there on Wednesday.
All right. Minister Nzimande, let me thank you very much for your time. And Yanga Soji, the Deputy News Editor at the Daily Dispatch, thanks indeed for your time and contribution to this conversation. All right.